Welcome, everybody, to episode 105 of Axioms on Trial. The guest today is conservative TikToker RC. I'm not going to waste any time. I'm going to bring him right on. Here we go.
How's it going, Cease?
Good. Thank you for coming on. I
Definitely.
appreciate it. So, let's just get into it. Usually, the way this goes is I'll have the guest tell the audience a little bit about what they do and who they are.
Okay.
So we can start there.
Sure. So I mean, you introduced me as a conservative TikToker. You probably picked up on that because of my live streams that I've done, the live stream debates that I've done on TikTok Live, to be specific. I started my TikTok account it's been about 4 months now. And I didn't start it necessarily as, I mean, even if to this date, like all my videos are, yeah, there's a few that are slightly political, but the majority of them are highlighting double standards that men face in society, in dating. I speak up for men's mental health. I what I also do is I call out a lot of like toxic forms of feminism. And what people misconstrue a lot is that I'm like shaming women or that I put women down, and absolutely not. I love women. I have no problem necessarily with women. I have a problem with toxic forms of feminism, and by calling that out, that doesn't mean that I'm shaming women. But this is something that's said a lot. So yeah, which goes into what we were discussing a few moments ago, that like people call me a misogynist, they'll call me a sexist, they'll say I'm dangerous, they want me to be banned, they want me to be taken down. But so I am a Christian, I'm a conservative. These things are true, but you don't really get a sense of that in my videos. You get more a sense of that when I've debated other people on TikTok Live. So that's probably why you think what you think. But yeah, and also the last thing I would say is, so yeah, I go by RC, which was a nickname coined by the community of people that watch my videos. But my name is The Right Corner on TikTok. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much what I do. Is I speak up for men. I call out toxic forms of feminism. I stand up for my conservative values and my Christian values.
Okay, so let's start from a point of agreement, which I
Okay.
think will probably be the only point where we agree on.
Okay.
Is that I think that I'm a free speech absolutist. Okay, so I support the idea that unless somebody's calling for straight up, violence onto a specific group of people, um, people should have a platform to express what it is they believe. I don't believe in censorship in the way that I think many people on the political left seem to support. Although I wouldn't. That's a whole other discussion. I have my own issues. Being a leftist, I do have my own issues with the left in that context. However, at the same time, I think that being, words have consequences, and I think, so I mean, you've been called a bigot, you've been called racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, and I'm guessing your perspective is that you've been misinterpreted or mischaracterized. Am I assuming correctly there?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, again, people can interpret whatever information they want, but what I see happens a lot of the time is someone like myself will have opinions that are grounded in my belief system. I will substantiate why I believe what I believe. And because I have a differing opposing view, the knee jerk reaction of a lot of people on the left is to pull out the you're a racist, you're a sexist, you're a transphobic, you're phobic this, you're phobic that, you're ist this, you're ist that. It's like, all right, well, let's not even engage, I guess, in a discussion since you're just going to, write me off as a racist. Like, okay, great conversation.
And do you think that it's as simple as you're being written off as a racist, or are there things about what you're saying that lead to those interpretations or potential misconceptions?
Like I said, people can interpret information however they'd like, but if they're going to interpret it and conclude that I'm a racist, at least substantiate your claim as to
Okay.
why that
Oh, of
is.
course, sure.
Yeah. but a lot of the times they don't, or when they do, it doesn't their analysis is not conclusive that I'm a racist or whatever it is. Like, it's never been. And then when I say, well, I'm not, doesn't fit the definition of racism or sexism, whatever, they're like, well, that's not the definition that I align with. And it's like, all right, so now we can't even have it, because now the definition is whatever it is that you want it to be. So, okay, great.
Right. So let me ask you, just to sort of get more of an understanding of where your views lie. So I'll ask you, and then we can get into some specific issues, and anything we don't get to, if you're willing to come back another time, we can get to those things as well. But from my understanding, you don't believe that, if I'm wrong, just correct me. You don't believe the patriarchy exists, right?
The patriarchy in the United States?
Yeah.
It does not exist. No, not anymore. It used to exist, but not anymore. Not for a long time.
Do you believe that gender roles exist?
Well, of course. I mean, are you asking me, do I believe they exist, or do I believe that they're important?
Let me phrase it better. Do you believe that they exist and that they should be enforced?
I believe that they exist. I believe that people can, this is a cultural thing. Like, people can live however they want. I believe that my Christian worldview says, yes, of course, that they're, and just my personal worldview, it's necessary to have men be men, women be women. It doesn't mean that men are better than women or women are worse than men. It means that we are different. So I believe, but to be enforced, like, what am I going to put people in jail for like being a feminine type of man? No, but like, people culturally, I think there's been a big cultural shift away from the traditional values of what it means to be a man, what it means to be a woman. And I think this is a mistake.
So you think that there should at the very least be social pressures to navigate men towards what you're defining a man to be, and we can get into that definition in a minute. But you're saying that culturally, you think it would be better if men behaved in a certain way and women behaved in a certain way.
Well, so you're saying, would I want cultural pressures? Well, the thing is, culturally, this is how it's been. Like, men have just been men, women have been women. There's been no pressure for that to be. The only pressure right now is coming from the left, telling men that masculinity is toxic, to be more of a feminine type of man, and women can be more of a masculine type of woman. And basically, women can be men and men can be women. And like, if we're talking about pressure, the only one applying this pressure is the left, to change the way things have always been.
And do you think that homosexuality, I'm guessing, given your religious background, you would say that homosexuality is a sin, correct?
That's between them and God. I'm not God. I can't. I believe a marriage is between a man and a woman. Absolutely. I think that a homosexual couple can have a civil union, and they can have all the benefits of said marriage, but to call it a marriage is a bastardization of the word marriage, because as it's always been in the United States, marriage comes from, scripture. The definition comes from scripture. As it's always been, we've always been culturally a very Christian nation. This is only a cultural shift away from our Christian worldview back in 2015, when they legalized gay marriage. So, but do I think it's a sin to be homosexual? Listen, that's between them and God. I'm not.
Of course, but you have an interpretation of what you think your faith suggests to you, right? About what you think God requires of Christians and of people, of his creation in general, right?
I can only live my life as a Christian. So, I mean, I've met gay people, lesbians, that call themselves a Christian, and okay, it's not for me to say that they're sinning. It's not for me to say what they're doing is wrong. It's for me to live my life the way Christ intended. So I'm doing my best as a Christian man to live my life the way that Christ intended. How they live their life. Here's the thing: in the Bible, it gives free will, and there's many examples in the Bible that are showing that we have free will. People can live their life as they want. We have core tenets, the 10 commandments, that we should live by. But is it for me to judge that they're sinning? It's not for me to judge. The Bible tells us not to judge. The Bible tells us to love everyone. I love them. I love everyone. When you're gonna ask me if you think like I hate the LGBT community, no, I love. Like that's
What?
what Christians are called to love. So
So I guess my question. Let me be more specific. Um, what does your Bible say about sin in the context of homosexuality? Because I've talked to different Christians who hold different interpretations of this. So all
yeah,
I'm asking here is, what do
yeah.
you think that the Christian interpretation should be as far as?
Well, I'm not gonna argue what I think it should be. I'm also not like I'm not a theologist, so I I'm not an expert on said matter. I most of my views really come down to this like marriage it's very clear that marriage is between a man and a woman. This is how marriage is defined in the Bible. This is how it's always been in the United States. I'm speaking about the United States because we were founded on majority Christian values. Like when we came over in 1776, when this country was founded in 1776, this was a Christian nation. It's always been a Christian nation. And 2015, I believe it was in 2015 when gay marriage was legalized. This was a massive L for the Christian worldview of for this country, and it really changed the paradigm of everything. So, but no, I mean, I don't. Christianity does not call for me to hate anybody, but I don't think we should be calling this marriage because a marriage is between a man and a woman.
Do you believe? And again, we'll cycle back to some of these issues, but I'm just kind of trying to get a more overall understanding of where you're coming from. Do you believe that toxic masculinity exists?
No,
You don't. Do you think that toxic femininity exists?
no, I think toxic people exist.
Okay. Let me see what else. And I'm trying to think if there is anything else. And you don't believe in do you believe in systemic racism, or do you think that that's a myth?
Like asking me if I believe in systemic racism, of course I believe in systemic racism. If you're asking me do I think that systemic racism exists in the United States, my question to you would be like what systems are racist? Like what institutions, what companies, like what are these systems that are racist? Now you can argue that there used to be, but then I would ask I would I would push back and say okay, what systems today in the United States are inherently racist?
Gotcha. Okay. So let's do this because I want to cycle back through some of the comments you made, and then I do, want to get to trying to understand your justification for your Christian worldview, like why it is you're a Christian and believe in God in the first place. Now, the first thing you said was that uh, you love women and
Sure, of
that
course.
you are concerned about men's mental health.
I am.
I can agree with you on both of those issues. However, um, where I think the difference lies is that I think many of your conservative Christian beliefs are detrimental to actually both. Um, you said that you care about men's mental health, but I've seen you defend Andrew Tate.
Okay.
Now, do you agree with Andrew Tate when he says that women with a high body count have less value?
So when you ask me less value, do you mean value as a human being? Because like I'm not Andrew Tate, I can't speak for him, but I would say all of us, um, when it comes to dating, right? We have standards, we have things that we're looking for in dating, and I would say that your preferences, if someone does not meet your preferences, that doesn't mean. So you have to be very careful with this term like value, right? Because does that mean that their value decreases as a human being? No, I would say no. However, I would say their value in terms of a potential dating partner goes down if they don't meet your preferences, as they should. You should know what your preferences are. And if this is one of his preferences and this person doesn't meet this said preference, then of course their dating value to him is going to go down. Why
The,
would it
the,
not?
but the issue here is whether or not those preferences in the first place are grounded in sexism or racism or homophobia or things of that nature. Because don't you think that we should be able to justify our preferences, justify our beliefs, or is it just going to be kind of free for all, and arbitrary?
Your dating preferences, you're asking?
Any preference about how to
Well,
navigate one's life and dating. I mean, we're talking about dating, so sure.
yeah. I mean, people have their dating preferences. Like, I
Yeah, of
don't have
course.
to ask them to justify to me, because here's the thing. They're going to have their dating preferences regardless. For me to like press them and try to get them to justify their dating preferences is just kind of weird to me. Like, sure, you can presume that some of them are whatever. Maybe you think they're rooted in racism or sexism or whatever the case may be, but the person doesn't have to justify to you their dating preferences, because it is their dating preferences and you shouldn't be able to tell them who they should and should not date.
I agree with that. I mean, I don't think that nobody has to justify anything that they don't want to discuss, right? But the question is, when somebody's expressing a certain ideology and a certain framework, I think it's normal for people on the outside to question that framework and to question whether or not the framework itself is toxic. But you say that a masculine, uh, a toxic masculinity doesn't exist.
Yeah,
But
no.
it seems to me that one of the greatest factors that contributes to men's mental health problems is toxic masculinity, is this the type of expectation, socially speaking, that you, from your Christian worldview, seem to suggest should be enforced. I mean, like you said before, you said men should be men, women should be women. Can you define for me what you think that manhood and womanhood are as social uh, roles that we should fit?
Yeah, I mean, like, men are providers, protectors. Men are the ones that will uh I mean, those two words really define it well. I mean, it's not all the, I guess the qualifiers that make up masculinity, but I'm just saying, like, men in terms of a family structure are the provider, the protector, the mother, the woman is more of the nurturing, caretaking role. That doesn't make her inferior, and it doesn't make him superior. See, that's the thing. Like, I'll say that, and people are thinking, "Oh, so you think men are superior?" No, I think the man should put his life on the line for his woman, and I think that he should do everything as to provide as much as he can for his family, protect his family, love his family. And I think that I mean, these are traditional values, right? Like, you don't have to subscribe to them, but I think that it's worked for a very long time. The shift away is clearly increasing divorce rates. The mental health of men is like worse than it's ever been. You can look at the suicide rate of men. It's what, 4 times that of women. Which, why would that be happening in a patriarchy? Since a patriarchy is beneficial to men, doesn't make much sense to me. Um, I know you're going to have some pushback with that
Yeah,
comment, but
I don't think that's true at all. I think
yeah,
patriarchy is detrimental to everybody. And I mean, you just said something that I don't understand. You said uh, a man's role is to provide,
yeah,
sure, but a woman can provide as well.
yeah. A woman can provide, but here's the thing, right? So I don't want to treat a woman like I treat a man. I was raised to treat a woman like a lady. I don't want to talk to her as I talk to a man. I want to talk to her more soft. I want to open the door for her. And before, like, because I say that and people are like, well, you don't open the door for your friends. You're getting lost in like the micro details. I'm saying that I do treat women in many ways more soft than men. I don't talk to them the exact same way that I do men. I don't expect the same things of them as I would expect of a man. For example, if I'm out on a date or I'm out, yeah, let's say on a date, I'm going, as I always have, pay for the date. But here's the thing. So that's how I think, women should be treated. That's a traditional way of treating women. However, what's happened now is, well, they want to be treated equally. The feminists specifically, we want to treat it equal, 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 equal. We don't need no man, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Then I'm going to talk to you the way I talk to a man. I'm going to treat you the way I treat a man. I'm not going to pay for the date. If you're such a feminist, you pay half. You pay half the bills in the house. You go work and you make half of what I make, or close to as much as you can, so you can pay half of all the bills. I'm not going to pay your car, all the purses, and then whatever you want to buy, you're going to buy on your own money, since you want to work. You want everything to be equal. I'm not going to expect you to stay home, but also I wouldn't date a woman like that. Personally, that's my preference. But I'm just saying, what happens is, the last point I want to make, what happens is this: a lot of these feminists want equality, but then the moment I start treating them equal and I talk to them the way I would be talking to you or any other man, all of a sudden I'm sexist. But never once in my life, when I've criticized a man on his worldview or something he's done or said, has he retorted back to me saying, "Oh, you must be criticizing me because you're sexist against men." However, that's happened a lot with women saying, "I must be thinking and talking to her the way I am because I'm sexist and I'm a misogynist against women." Like, this is ridiculous.
I think most women now are not, I mean, or many women, I shouldn't say most, but I think many women are uncomfortable with the idea of the man paying for her dinner, because the expectation, socially speaking, is that if a man pays for the dinner, they're owed sex. I have no problem with the idea that, like, if you're describing, treating women equally, yes, if they want to, if the dynamic is, here's what I find interesting, because I don't think they're calling you sexist because you're talking to them in a certain way. I think they're calling you sexist because um, fundamental to what you're suggesting is that the natural way of things are these traditional roles where, like you just said, you wouldn't date a woman who wants to go out and provide, because you think that's a man's job. And what I'm saying to you is that these essentialist views on what a woman and a man are
Mm.
is completely irrational to me, because, like I said, you mentioned a man providing, a woman can provide. You mentioned a man protecting, a woman can protect. um, it seems to me that if you care about mental health for men, right? One way to not uh, contribute to poor mental health for men is to this idea that um, a man's role is the specific thing, and if they don't want to fit that category or fail to succeed in that category, they are less of a man. Whether it's showing emotion, whether it's providing, I have friends whose dynamic is the woman works and the man stays with the children, and they have a perfectly workable, happy, functioning relationship. But they're on the outside, they're viewed as, he's viewed as less of a man, and for some people that's going to impact their psychology in a negative way. So it seems to me that your definition of you what will lead to men's better mental health, which we can both agree is important, but I think your tactic about navigating that is very problematic. It's doing more harm than help.
Yeah, I mean, I don't agree. I think that it's worked for a long time. It's the men have always been able to provide for their family. They've never needed the. So there's a few things I want to say to what you said, but the first thing is it's men have always been able to provide for their family. This is only like a shift that's happened maybe I would say 40, 50 years ago, that has basically told women you can do everything a man can do. Okay, give them. I want women to have the same opportunities, but here's my thing, right? Like, um, personally, when I get married, if we don't have kids, which we're not going to have kids before we get married, obviously, but when I get married, there's no kids in the picture. So we're both. I mean, I'm mad, assuming that she has no kids when I marry her. But let's say we both don't have kids. We get married. I'm not expecting that she thinks I'm just retiring her. I want her to work. I do want her to work when we're married. What I want, though, when we do have kids, that whatever career that she doesn't have to stop it forevermore. But I will provide and protect for her for the first, let's say, 3 years of our children's life until they're off to school. But for those 3 years, I expect her to be a stay-at-home mom. I do. And I'm not saying that women have to submit to this role, but they also don't have to date me. They have the choice to date whoever they want. And I'm more than capable and willing to provide and protect for her during this period of time, because I want the mother of our children to be in their life as much as humanly possible. I don't want nannies raising them. I don't want anybody else other than myself, the father, and she, the mother, especially in those early extremely important years of our children's life. Um, I want her there as present as humanly possible.
When you say that it's worked, that's what I'm pushing back against, because I don't think it's worked. I think you're describing a time that was a time of oppression. If it had worked, if
Yeah.
society worked in that way, and everybody was fine with the way things were running, there would not have been a shift. If there social shifts arise when social dynamics are not working. That's what leads to those shifts. They don't happen arbitrarily.
Well, if it wasn't working, I mean, look at things now. Men are killing themselves at a rate more than ever. It's horrible. Secondly, divorce rates are higher than ever. Marriage rates are lower than ever. I would say, I don't know exactly how you can measure happiness, but you just go on TikTok and you go like on these videos where it's anecdotal, but still, regardless, you see this guy with like a microphone going to like a downtown area or just some venue, and he's asking girls like, "What do you think is wrong with dating?" And they're like, "Men are trash, men are horrible, men are this." I don't think women were talking like that in 1970, 1960. I don't think women had this like innate hatred towards men, but I think this is something that's taught. I think the left is on purposely demonizing masculinity, purposely demonizing men, because that if you were the powers at be, if you were the powers to at if you were like an evil power trying to indoctrinate a nation, what's the first thing you do? Separate family and you weaken men, because then it's easier to just indoctrinate your nation.
So I think that there is. I agree with you that men's mental health problems are, is a real issue that we have to navigate and examine. But your analysis that the reason why men are killing themselves is because women are being more mean than they used to be.
That's not the only reason. That's not the only. I mean, it's multifactorial, but like,
Well, let me just clarify something, because I
yeah.
don't think it's masculinity that's being demonized. It's what I would say is toxic masculinity that's being demonized. And sometimes women are the same ones that are pushing forth the same notions that I would deem as toxic. So this idea, for example, here's one a good example, right? The idea that men should not show emotion, that the sign of a real man is that of a man who does not show vulnerability, because vulnerability is weakness. That is a trope and a viewpoint that both men and women in society sometimes will push. That
Uh,
is what I mean when I say toxic masculinity. That is an example of toxic masculinity. That's not masculinity, it's toxic masculinity.
what? Not showing emotion?
Yeah, the idea that if you show emotion, if you cry, if you show sensitivity, you're somehow less of a man.
No. What I think it is, it's not. I would say that. I mean, we could kind of call that stoicism, in other words. But I think that a man that's not able to regulate his emotion is toxic. Is far more toxic than a man that feels his emotion but doesn't act on every emotion he feels. I would rather a man that doesn't act on every emotion he feels and knows how to process his emotions versus a man that just every time he feels an emotion just acts on it. I feel
Well,
that's a man that's far more
I'm
dangerous.
not, but it's not a dichotomy there. Like, I'm not saying that to be healthy, you have to react to the fullest degree every time you feel something. That's not what I mean. Obviously not. There's a time and a place. What I'm saying is that there's a difference between reacting, crazy to everything that you feel, and being stoic to where now every time you have an emotion, or you have a what's the word I'm looking for, um, any kind of expression of sensitivity and vulnerability, now you're actually driven to hide that, because you have these notions of what manhood is supposed to be, which is in this case is the hardened, like, I'm going to be not just in control, like if I'm out in public walking around, but in control all the time, to where I don't show the side of me. This is what someone like Andrew Tate is essentially saying, that you are a weaker person if you display vulnerability to your woman.
Um display too much vulnerability. And I'm not Andrew Tate, so like I don't want to keep speaking on behalf of him because I'm not him. I can only speak on myself. Um Andrew, look, the only person I subscribe to 100% is Jesus Christ. So Andrew Tate is a human being. I don't subscribe to 100% of what any one mortal being has said, because if you do, if there's, besides Jesus, if you subscribe to 100% of what one person has said, you need to like reconsider your worldviews. So I don't want to keep like trying to justify Andrew Tate, but I'll tell you what I think. So I mean, toxic masculinity is non-existent. There's talk, because if you look at the like characteristics that deem, you know, masculinity, we're talking about stoicism. Stoicism is it like a neutral characteristic? It's like neutral. It's neutral, because if you know how to regulate your emotion, and you feel the emotion, you process the emotion, but you don't act on the emotion, I feel that is a far stronger man than a man that doesn't know how to regulate his emotions and just acts. And I know you said not, it's overacting on emotion can also be bad, but I feel just because you're not displaying over vulnerability all the time, it's not a bad thing. Like if you can process your emotion, regulate it, and not show it, I feel that's a very strong characteristic. That doesn't mean that you're just suppressing it though. That means that you have regulated, you've processed it, but you're just not showing. You don't have to show every single time that you feel sad to be sad.
You don't have to show every single time, but I think that when you say, again, what it, what matters is what do you mean by showing. Like if you're upset, and because you're upset you punch somebody in the face,
Yeah.
yeah, like that's a problem. But if
Yeah.
you're upset and you communicate with your partner and you show your, and like you, for example, if you cry in front of your partner, that's not an act of being incapable of regulating yourself. It's a part of being able to be human and be vulnerable in front of your partner. And you, again, this, my issue is you talk about the importance of mental health, but you seem to be ignoring. You say toxic masculinity is not a thing, but then you, at the same time, you are reinforcing this certain views that I think is exactly what contributes to that toxicity. Like, and then you take it as like, oh, we're talking bad about men, like men are inherently bad. No, I when I say toxic masculinity, I am concerned about the well-being of men, and the things that are projected on men, socially speaking. For me, and again, this is a comment that I showed earlier. Where did you go? I think I lost it, but oh yeah, here we go. Masculinity and femininity are not solely tied to one gender or the other. There's intersectionality. A lot of these expectations are cultural. You know, they're not. This is why, you know, when you say men are men, this is, you make the distinction between this men and women. Like, you know, you're ignoring the fact that there's a difference between sex and gender. That gender is primarily cultural constructions, and that it is the attempt to fit people into these boxes, and the expression that if you don't fit these boxes, you are somehow lesser than. That is what's contributing to terrible mental health, and primarily this is coming from your religion. This is a religious driven dynamic, from my perspective.
Yeah, but I mean, you're deeming something that's toxic that's not toxic though. Like, what's toxic about? I mean, we're only talking about, let's say, stoicism right now. I mean, Christianity doesn't. Where in Christianity does it teach stoicism?
No, but in Christianity does teach that there are these specific roles, and that they're not only cultural, but they are inherent. Like they make this binary of what a man is and what a woman is. We are taught this myth that there's this essentialist nature to both men and women.
Do you think that men and women are the same?
I think there are differences, but I think for the most part, uh, yeah, they are the same. I think that
But there's
certain
differences.
there are certain biological differences, but they're not the differences that you'll be concerned with. Like for me, I think there are. I think it's true that generally speaking, men are probably uh, more prone to certain types of aggression. Women, I think, are in certain aspects, certainly physically, uh, weaker, generally speaking. But that's not what I'm referring to. Like we can all observe that there are biological differences without then assuming that there are differences in what the role of a man or a woman should be.
Well, I'm telling you, I'm not mandating that it has to be, because this is a cultural thing. I'm telling you what I think, yeah, it ought to be, but I'm not going to put it in law that men have to be the more masculine, women have to be the more feminine. I think the shift away from it is what the left wants, because like men shouldn't be women and women shouldn't be men. We are different.
I think it's you buying into this binary that is actually, ironically, so counterproductive to your own goal of helping men move towards a place of better mental health. I think it is this view that this is how it should be, how it ought to be, uh, that so deeply harms everybody involved.
Why?
Because I think that it is a sort of violence. It is a attempt to stifle one's individuality, to tell them this is what you're supposed to be. And if you don't meet this criteria, whether it's the criteria that the Bible tells me is the case, or it's the criteria that society has told is the case, you are somehow failing as a man, or you're somehow failing as a woman. Yes, we can agree that there are differences among men and women, but those differences are not the differences that these cultures, especially on the conservative side, are concerned with. Like I said, if a a couple, and we can go to the conversation about gays in a minute. Um, but if a couple wants to decide that the man is going to stay home with the kids and the woman is going to go out and earn a living, neither of those people involved in that relationship should be viewed as somehow doing something wrong.
They can live their life however they want. I'm telling you what I subscribe to. I
Sure,
can't tell people how to live their life, but I will give you my opinion. My
that's
opinion
fair.
is,
Sure.
but I'm gonna give. I haven't given it. Well, that was one opinion. I'm gonna give you another opinion though. That now you don't have. This is my opinion. All right. I do not believe a woman will. Okay. Let's say that a woman wants to be the provider and the protector, which is the more traditional masculine role. Right. I don't think this is a relationship that's gonna work out long term. And even if it does, I don't. I mean, I don't believe that. I think the only women that want to like be the dominant in the relationship, they want the man to kind of submit to them, are women that have had poor relationships with men in their past, perhaps their father, and now they want to dominate over a man. I think I see a lot of these. I mean, that's why we have like a lot of these feminists dating like simpish type men that just submit to them. They're submissive to these women, and I mean like why would a man be submissive? Like men don't play this submissive role. Women don't play this like dominant role in a
Again,
relationship.
this is primarily, sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but like, I mean, there's two things here. Why would you view staying at home with the children as being a submissive role?
I didn't say that.
Okay, so then I'm misunderstanding you, because
No, I'm just saying when men like are being submissive, like
what's wrong
when
with that? There are men that enjoy their role, there are women that enjoy their role. Why would you expect that to not be a relation that could last?
I don't believe it's a relationship that could last because it's not natural. It's
So
not natural.
this is what I'm pushing back against, right? Like,
Mm.
what I care about is people's, and the kind of the point of my channel is to try to get at the root of people's claims and whether or not they can justify their values. You say it's not natural. Um, Defend that, because there are literally thousands of people who are exactly in those dynamics, and they've had those relationships for as long as any other relationship that you can think of from any other types of couple. Sometimes even now you can say, oh, the divorce rates, yeah, but you're not recognizing that there is an agenda here. When you say look at how high the divorce rates are, must be because of the bad evil left trying to pervert what's natural. But I
A
could,
lot of that is, yeah.
I mean, that's your analysis, but what I'm saying is that I think that is incorrect. I think a lot
Okay.
of the reason for that is not because some men choose to be submissive. It's because of capitalism. It's because of the same kind of social pressures that I think the because again, you can say the left wants these things to change, but the shame that still is present culturally is that the right wants to continue pushing forward, like what you said, like it's unnatural. This is a way of phrasing it that for people who think is what they want to do could be a source of shame. There are many reasons why couples divorce, and I don't think it's because the big bad left has taken control of society.
And yeah, I mean, I'm not narrowing it to one thing. I think it, like with many things, with many of the subjects we're discussing, it is multifactorial. Excuse me, it's multifactorial. It's you have to take like a to analyze it in good faith, or to like get a good an overarching conclusion. Yeah, it's not just one thing, but I definitely blame the left for quite a bit. But you were saying how it's like, for me to say that a man playing a masculine role and the woman being the more feminine role, and being the more nurturer and caretaker, and the man being the more provider and protector is not natural. I'm saying it's natural. You're saying it's not natural. But when you look in North America, that's how it's always been. You look Central America, hold on, it's always been. South America, same. Europe, same. Africa, same. Asia, same. Australia, same. And even when you look outside of the species, even within, I mean, we are mammals. Even you look at other mammals, it's this is almost the same. Almost always the exact same. Like
I can
like
send you resources that show that there are cultures that don't abide. In fact,
yeah, there's some cultures. There are some, but I'm saying like almost all man, masculine, provider, protector, even back when we were like cavemen, like it's throughout human history. The man is like the provider, protector, the hunter, the gatherer, and the woman is the caretaker, the nurturer, taking care of the home. It's how it's always been. It's the left trying to change this paradigm. And one more thing I want to say is, there are going to be women that can fit into the shoes of a man, that can work in male dominated professions. This does exist. I'm not saying that it's impossible. But what I'm saying is, a lot of these feminists that say like, oh, I can work and we need equal and we can do everything without a man, I think they're bullshitting. And I think that they're lying. And I think that they know that they're not being honest. That's why they're just, usually when you have to talk and talk and talk, you're not actually doing it. The people that are actually doing it, I've worked with women that are high up in a male dominated profession, and they're excelling. They're doing better than a lot of the men. And guess what? They don't have to tout, I'm such a feminist, I don't need any man. They're still like married in a traditional type of relationship, but like she is working in a male dominated profession, right? But what I'm saying is this, like, there are so many girls that I've talked to on TikTok alone, that I will push them, not physically, but like push back ideologically as I'm doing to you. And they're like, you're sexist. That's why you think the way you think. It's like, you're proving my point that you're not able to handle being treated equal to that of a man.
No, so well, one thing I want to say is, as far as the animal kingdom, actually matriarchy is seen much more than patriarchy in the animal kingdom. But
Yeah, but
that's
I said
beside.
mammals.
No, that's what I'm talking about. It's not true on the mammals thing. Matriarchy is seen much more even in that sphere. But it's not, to me. It's not so much that, like, how would I say it? It's not that I think that you necessarily think that women are inferior to you. Is that I think what is sexist, or what can be interpreted as sexist, is that you buy into these, like, you actually think that words like feminine and masculine have some natural foundation. But and to just say, well, it's how it's always been, I think is just a naturalistic fallacy. It's just, there's a reason why it's shifted. The left didn't come into existence from thin air and just decided, let's do away with what's already been working. The left exists, and this shift has taken
Yeah,
place.
they did, because it has been working.
But
It's worked throughout human history.
but it hasn't.
But it
If it
has.
did, if it did, if everybody in the culture,
Okay.
if this system had worked for everybody involved, and
And
everybody
it did.
was,
And it did.
but if that was true, there would never have been a shift in the first place. There would
If it
not have
was,
been an equal.
if what you're saying was true, then you wouldn't have all these women saying all men are trash, men are pieces of shit, kill
No, I
all
can tell you
men.
why. I can tell you why that is.
Well, I can tell you why. It's because they've been fed to believe that men are evil.
Or
They've been fed with this belief.
or it's because their experience with men has been one of where men think that they are owed sex, that they are owed their body.
Hmm.
It's not that because the left. I mean, let's be real. Like, how many of these people that you even talk to have any kind of background in politics? You think that they're there, like studying the role of politics in their schools? That that's what's teaching them? No, it's the fact they run into men who think that it's okay to use them, who think it's okay that that if they pay for dinner, they are owed sex.
Well, yeah, let me I agree with you. Like, no, first of all, I tell men to date with the intention of marriage. I don't want
Which
men
again,
going out on dates. I don't You don't agree with that?
I think that it's one thing to say that people shouldn't use other people for sex. I think it's another thing to say that the only way in which you can connect with another human being and therefore dating them should be if you're planning to marry.
Or date them and have this person be your lifelong partner. You got to come up with a solution though, because here's the thing: a lot of these
Sure.
feminists will be like, "Well, we don't want to be objectified, and I don't want women to be objectified. I don't want men to subscribe to OnlyFans. I don't want men to be liking these half-naked pictures of girls on social media because they're not liking those pictures because he thinks that this could be a good mother to his children. He's liking those pictures because he's lusting over her. You're look dumbfounded, but like when a girl's posting a bikini picture bent over on a guy's yacht or on a yacht in general, and she's like showing off her chest, showing off her ass, showing off her body parts. When a guy DMs her, when she looks like that, you think he's DMing her because he wants to potentially make this the mother of his children and
I,
marry her, or do you
I,
think he's DMing her because he wants to have sex with her?
I think the primary problem there is with the idea that sexuality justifies objectification. Because I personally, and I agree with you, most men who are DMing these people are doing it because they're just trying to fuck, right? But from my perspective, if anybody who's on OnlyFans who's sexualizing themselves in that way, I don't judge or think of them as an object whatsoever. I can look at a woman posting those pictures and be aware enough to know that that's a human being still. That it's a human being with a history. That's a human being with a family. That's a human being with beliefs
Okay, but did
and
you hear me
emotions.
judge her? Because that's the thing. I've shifted my criticism to telling men to unsubscribe from OnlyFans. I didn't say anything negative about
No,
I
but you
have
know
my
what you
own.
should say. But you know what I think you should say is, instead of saying unsubscribe from OnlyFans because OnlyFans, because the woman doing that would is showing that they would be a bad mother. But that's essentially what you're saying, is that someone like that is not
No,
fit.
no, no. Listen, if a guy subscribes to OnlyFans, he's subscribing to OnlyFans because he's lusting over this woman. He's not trying. This is not someone he's trying to like marry. This is a lust. This is acting on lust. And the thing is, if feminists are serious, women at large are serious about not wanting to be objectified, then me telling men to not objectify women by not lusting over them, unsubscribe from OnlyFans, stop lusting over these half naked pictures of girls on social media and
Do you
shift
think
your focus. But
do you,
like, but that's
do you,
just, but yeah, go ahead.
do you think it's possible for somebody to engage, like you're saying, it's coming from a place of lust, but do you think that it's possible to not just be, hey, if I'm gonna lust over somebody, then I have to objectify them? Is it possible to lust?
What do you
Uh,
mean? That's your, if you're lusting over them and that's the only reason that you're messaging them or
doesn't have to be
contacting
the only
them.
reason, though, right? Like,
No,
it
I'm
could be,
saying if
sure, if.
OnlyFans, on OnlyFans, the guy's objectifying the girl.
But do you think that that has to be the case?
Of course. Why is he on her OnlyFans? Of course.
So you don't think it's possible for
She's not
for
posting cooking videos on OnlyFans. Maybe that exists, but I'm saying, like, from my understanding of OnlyFans, this is basically porn. And the guy's subscribing to her to because he's objectifying her. He's lusting over her.
have you ever? So I'm guessing that you don't have yourself an experience with sex work, right?
Do I have an experience with sex work?
Yes. How many people do you know are in the field, have engaged in the field? Because the reality is that actually, more often than not, there is some kind of relationship dynamic that is built through these things. Now, you guess, obviously, you from a Christian perspective are going to view that as, still not a good thing to do. But it's not necessarily the case that just because you're lusting, you find somebody attractive, that's all that it is, and that therefore you think you're entitled to just objectify the person and demean them. In fact, often the case it is that many of the men that are paying for these things are actually submissive, and are not looking to just, you know they're not looking to demean the person. There's some report that's built
Yeah,
to that.
but like this is what's wild to me. Like I don't want men. I'm not blaming the girls. Can do whatever they can, post whatever pictures they want. They can be be careful with my words here. They can be a I don't know, an OnlyFans person. I they do whatever you want. I'm telling men, unsubscribe from that bullshit, because the porn is not healthy. Like you can look up the statistics of your brain on porn, and this is not healthy at all.
I
And
think like anything,
also,
it depends on how you experience it, right? Like alcohol can be
no,
unhealthy
this is scientifically proven that porn is not healthy for our brain.
if it becomes an addiction. Yeah, like it's unhealthy. Like most things that if taken, if somebody doesn't navigate them carefully, I agree with you. Porn can be incredibly addictive and destructive, but it's not inherently the case that it has to be. It's about how one navigates it. Alcohol can be destructive.
But listen, you can't have your like you can't have it one way and not have it the other. If women don't want to be objectified, if we want to tell men not to objectify women, you have to agree with me that men should unsubscribe from OnlyFans, because this is
I don't
pure
agree.
objectification of women. Okay, say then you
I
don't want
only
women
say
to not,
no.
then you
I
want
always
women
say
to be objectified. Like there's no other
no,
way around it.
no.
Yes. Yeah.
I say no because I'm perfectly capable of, because I don't view sexuality the way that you do. I'm perfectly capable of recognizing lust or lusting over somebody while not leaving out their humanity. I personally, individually, maybe that's not the case for most of society, but individually, me speaking for myself, I've never had a problem. I can look at porn and not think of that person as a piece of meat. I'm capable of it. So if I'm capable of it, why should I assume that somebody else isn't? It just doesn't make sense to me. Like you're
Well,
creating this false dichotomy.
I don't think I am. Like I'm saying that
I couldn't
is men
exist because
is men sexually objectifying women a bad thing?
unless the person likes to be objectified, then sure, yeah, it
Yeah,
shouldn't.
I would say
Yeah,
a lot of feminists women complain about not wanting to be sexually objectified. I don't want men to sexually objectify women. In other words, when a guy goes out on a date, whether he's found a date to go on through a dating app or I don't know, however, I don't want men to go out on the date with the idea I'm going to try to sleep with her by the end of the night. I want men to go out on a date thinking to himself, could is this person wifey material? And the types of questions and the types of behavior he portrays on that date will be very different if he goes with the framework of this could potentially be something serious versus what are the right things I can say so that she takes her pants off for me by the end of the night. I don't want men to do that. I don't want men to just be trying to sleep around. I think hookup culture is disgusting, and I think it's totally degenerate for many reasons outside of just religion alone. And if feminists disagree with me on this, they want to be objectified. There's no other way around it. Like you either don't want to be objectified and you agree with what I'm saying, or you do want to be objectified, but you say you don't. Because here's the thing: if I tell men to stop liking pictures of half naked girls on social media and to stop following those accounts and actually unfollow those accounts and don't DM those accounts anymore, and instead like pictures of girls that are like, you know, taking a picture with her family at church or taking a picture with her friends, you know, doing something wholesome versus just like wearing two tiny pieces of articles of clothing at the beach bent over showing her ass and tits. If men just stopped liking that sort of content, if you don't like what I'm saying or feminists get mad at that, then they want to be objectified. There's no other way around it.
I
Because I'm
think that
telling
you.
men not to objectify women, sexually objectify women. I'm
No,
telling men don't lust over women.
so I think that again, this is a problem of, because let me start where I agree, right? Unless somebody wants to be objectified, I don't think they should be objectified, and I think that um, uh, a I'm somebody who I'm not into hookup culture. Okay, I have to find an emotional connection with somebody. It doesn't have to be for marriage, but I have to find at least a strong connection with somebody to be interested in uh, being sexual with
So
them.
then why are you dating?
Because what I don't think is the case is this view on sexuality where if you're having sex outside of marriage, you like the word you use, which I is like my new favorite word is degenerate. That somehow, if like you've created this dichotomy where it's either you are a degenerate who can only objectify women if you're lustful, or you're this wholesome, let's find the mother to my children and the wife that I'm going to spend the rest of my life with.
Okay.
And that seems to
But,
me to be
of those two
more.
scenarios, which one would you rather majority of men be doing? Of those two, would you
No,
rather the majority of men want to just hook up with women, sexually objectify women on social media, be like, I subscribe to all these girls on OnlyFans, or would you rather the majority of men? Yes, you're going to have some exceptions, but would you rather the majority of men dating with the intention of marriage?
Here's what I would rather. Here's what I would rather. I would rather there being consent. I would rather there being a destigmatization of sexuality where we're not shamed for sex, we're not shamed for body count, to where, yes, I think it's more meaningful for me, and I think it would be better for the benefit of society. Obviously, I think families are a must. But families doesn't mean the traditional Catholic family. Like you said, a number of things that I want to get back to. Then I also want to examine one issue, but hold on, let me. Cause I don't want to take too much of your time, but I want to try to get through some of these things. What I'm suggesting to you is that it's not one way or the other. It's not just like, I don't think that everybody should just be having meaningless sex unless it's not something that's actually harming them, which for some people it's not. For me, it would be. I can't do it, right? But for some, it's not that way. And I think what's the problem is to take those people who are unlike us and say you're degenerate, you're wrong, you're immoral, because they're different. That's where if a woman has a high bar. Here's one thing I want to say is, I would never marry somebody if I didn't know I was sexually compatible with them. So like, I can date with the intention of a life partner, and I'm going to want to have sex. Like, obviously I'm not going to pressure anybody into that ever. Like, I don't want anybody to feel to do anything they're uncomfortable with. But I want to know that I can connect with them on that level, and I don't need the title of marriage to be able to do that. When you say that, and this is kind of going back to now the conversation about homosexuality thing. When you get upset that people think you're homophobic, but then you believe things like marriage is historically this thing, even though marriage existed before religion, certainly before Christianity, and you want to say that it's okay for gay people to have unions, but they shouldn't be recognized as a real marriage.
Wait, but pause there, because I'm talking about how marriage has been in the United States, the country that I'm in.
But you say it's a Christian nation, right? That's what you said earlier.
It has always been a Christian nation.
I could not disagree more.
Socially, it has always been a Christian nation. Socially.
Most of the founding fathers were deists, not theists, and the ones that were theists very clearly wanted a separation between church and state.
Okay.
To say it's a Christian nation is just historically false.
No, I socially, we have always been a Christian nation. Socially, the majority of people in this country have always been Christian. I mean, for God's sake, on our currency, it's printed, "In God we trust," and the Pledge of Allegiance is one nation under God. Like, laws have been formed around our views of Christianity since the inception of this country. Now, there's no establishment of religion in government. There is a separation of church and state, which, by the way, you can't find me those exact words written word for word, separation of church and state in the Constitution.
How do you figure? What do you mean?
I don't think you well, go ahead. Find me the exact quote right there. Separation of church and state in the Constitution.
Sure.
But anyways, socially, we have always been a Christian nation. The majority of people in this country still to this day are Christian. The majority. I think it's like 65%.
You said that I can't find it in the Constitution, right? Is that what you just said?
Yeah, I mean, you might be able to find it in but in Article 1 of the Constitution, it says that there's not an established religion, but it does not say there needs to be separation of church and state in the Constitution.
When was separation of church and state added to the Constitution? When the First Amendment was adopted in 1791, the Establishment Clause applied only to the federal government, prohibiting the federal government from any involvement in religion. By 1833, all states had the established religion from government, providing protections for religious liberty in state constitutions. So, I mean, that's just not at all
but it
true.
does not say word for word there needs to be separation of church and state. But this is a more, but it doesn't say that word for word. It like
the Fourth and the Fifth Amendments.
No, it does not. It does not say that word for word, but it does say there's no establishment of religion. Now, what I'm saying is socially, because you're speaking legally. Socially, we've always been a Christian nation. Always have been a Christian nation. So when we're talking about marriage in the United States, because you said marriage has been before the Bible. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about marriage in the United States has always, it was derived from Christianity. That's how marriage was derived. I mean, so all throughout the United States, up until 2015, marriage has been between a man and a woman. Marriage was defined per the Bible because we've been socially a Christian nation until we changed the paradigm, and this is a push from the left. So I mean, you're looking dumbfounded, but this is how it's always been.
But I think that it is a complete bastardization of history. I think socially, like, yes, you can talk about a majority, perhaps, but in reality, what's so great about the U.S., and I don't praise the U.S. often, but what's so great about it is that it's been a melting pot of different cultures with different beliefs. So you want to say that it's culturally we've been a Christian nation? No, we've been a nation of people of different cultures living together, and whether it's Jewish, atheist, Christian, like it's you again. I think this is the part of from my perspective, the conservative delusion that there's this time in the past where, the good old days, where things were better, where society thrived, where tradition is what led society to thrive, where this was primarily a Christian a nation. And from my perspective, it's just ignoring the reality of history that's pointing to a very different situation. And the fact to me that we are now in this position where there's been a movement away from traditional values is because those values don't work. Because they have failed to actually provide protection and well-being for the vast variety of people that exist in the world. And again, me and you we can agree that we care about men's mental health, we care about women being respected, but your solution to those things, from my perspective, is buying into the same values that lead to women being disrespected. For example, in this context, the shaming of sexuality and the objectification of sexuality, or the shaming of men in this idea that to be a man, you have to be this strong, like, don't cry, like, never, don't show weakness because otherwise you're a bitch type of mentality. And maybe you don't personally believe all those details, but that is what I'm kind of fighting against, is this perspective. Just real quick, I want to play a video because you say that often you're taken out of context, right? And I want to play a video of something that you said, and I want to understand the context because I want to be fair to you. And I hope you don't feel like I'm being unfair to you in the conversation, do you?
Let's play it.
Okay, give me 1 second.
Why? Because freaking conservatives aren't fighting for anything.
I feel like you don't listen.
Look at Qatar right now. Look at Qatar. Let me show you a country that actually stands for something. Look at Qatar. Do they allow any of the LGBT stuff in the World Cup in Qatar? Yes or no?
No.
No, because there's a country that stands for. Now, you don't have to agree with that. I'm not even saying I agree. What I'm saying
Wait,
is
Qatar is that's terrible.
What do we stand for?
They've systemically killed people that are even speculative LGBT. I don't agree with that. As a Christian, you shouldn't agree with that.
In Qatar, do they stand for that? Qatar stands for certain things.
Oh, sorry. I kicked the wrong thing.
Oh, I thought you two was like, yeah, we're not having this one. No.
So
yeah. Of course, I don't stand for anybody being killed. This is not what, as Sanvi said, this is not what Christianity stands for. What I'm saying is, what my overarching point was, what the fuck are conservatives fighting for? What are conservatives fighting for? What are they fighting to conserve? Well, I mean, gay marriage is legal, abortion's legal. These are things that were never a part of this. It's a direct contradiction to Christianity. And Qatar is an Arab nation. So I'm not a Muslim. But what I'm saying is this is their tradition. This is their cultural system in Qatar. And if you disrespect it, that's Islamophobic. That's Islamophobic.
I have no problem disrespecting Islam. I'll do it all day long. But
okay, but what I'm saying is this, like, they stand for something. Now, I do not advocate for anybody being killed or persecuted for their sexual orientation.
They stand for persecution.
In the World Cup, more specifically, they don't allow the gay flag. They don't allow LGBT. They don't. This is not permissible. There's no marriage between a man and a woman in Qatar. There's no.
And this is what you stand, and you agree that they should stand for that.
I don't agree that they should be killing anyone. No, this is what I was taking out of context.
Sure, but you do agree.
But you're proving my point that I'm taking out of context.
No. That's why I'm giving you a platform to explain the context.
Yeah, fair enough.
So you don't agree with any government killing gay people. Awesome.
No.
But you do agree with the idea that if you could, let's say that you could make the rules tomorrow, okay, and you would ban the gay flags, you would ban gay marriage, you would ban abortions.
I would no, hold on. Let's slow the roll there. I would I'm not saying that I subscribe to everything that Qatar is doing. My point, I would not ban gay flags. No, I would not call a civil union, because that's what it is, a civil union between two men or two women, a marriage. That's it. That's all I'm saying. Because the moment the conservatives bent the knee and gave into that was this paradigm shift away from the Christian worldview that we've always subscribed to in the United States, culturally speaking. We've always subscribed to that, and then we just shifted away from it like 180. But one more thing about the Qatar, like, because I know, see, this is what I'm saying about people. I'm not saying you specifically, but that video that you just played, what did it say? RC's lost his mind. Is that your video?
What do you mean my
video? The video you just played, is that your TikTok video that you made?
No, that was
someone else. Okay. Well, I thought that was yours. But what I was going to say is, like, they're taking me out of context. They didn't play the context before or after. My point, because Sanvi is a conservative so far that I knew, or she's on my side of the political aisle. And what I was telling Sanvi is this: what are conservatives fighting to conserve? I mean, the left doesn't bend the knee to anything. The left is pushing, and the conservatives are like, okay, yeah, we're going to allow abortion. Oh, okay, yeah, we're going to allow gay marriage. Oh, okay, yeah. It's like, so you're not fighting to conserve anything then. We are conservative. If you're not, and you're a progressive. So we're fighting to conserve, you're fighting to progress. And I think that both are necessary in a society. But the thing is, the progressives have majority of control over media, over social media and mass media. And when conservatives like myself come out and say, hey, I don't think that marriage should be, I don't think two men or two women getting a civil union should be called a marriage. Yeah, they can have all the benefits that come from a marriage, but let's not call it a marriage, because through the United States history, marriage came from the Bible. Now, you could say that marriage came before the Bible, and I'm not arguing that. I'm arguing that in the United States, traditionally, conservatively, I'm trying to conserve that traditional value. Right. But then I'm a bigot, I'm a homophobe. So then, okay, call me whatever you want, fine. But at least I'm a conservative fighting to conserve something. And a lot of these conservatives have just continuously bent the knee. That's the point that I was trying to make to Sanvi.
I think the problem is that we're trying to conserve our ideologies that are ultimately harmful to society. So I'm not going to necessarily say that you're any particular thing of those words, but from my perspective, if you want to say, oh, these people are being unfair because they're calling me a homophobe, and it's, what it is, which is like, I find interesting to me from religious people of all kinds, not just Christians. But when religious people say, my religion drives me to love, it teaches me to love, but then fundamentally, you are rejecting the other. The second that the other doesn't fit what you think another human being should be, or where you think that your God tells you that a human being should fit. So when you say I love gay people, I just don't think that their marriage should be recognized as a marriage. I love gay people, but isn't Qatar great? Because they're standing for something. Even though what they're standing for is the alienation of their own population. Yes, I agree with you. There are many conservative. You see that many conservatives are kind of losing the battle, right? And you say, I want to stand for something. I want to stand for conservative beliefs. What I'm trying to tell you is that you're fighting a losing battle, ultimately, because progress.
I'm sure you would like to think that. I'm sure progressive would like to propagate that idea, and I'm sure that there's a lot of weak conservatives that would subscribe to what you're saying. I'm not one of those conservatives. I'm a conservative that's actually. I don't call me homophobic. Call me. I don't give a fuck. That's the thing. Like,
but I haven't called you anything, right?
No, I'm not saying you. When I say you, I mean at large. Like when I'm called that, okay, call me that. I'm still gonna fight to conserve what I believe is a good value to conserve. And you can as a progressive say, no, I don't agree with that for these many reasons. But I see so many conservatives not fighting to conserve anything. So
let me ask you one thing, because I'm curious. Where does Jesus talk about homosexuality? Because I know that Jesus talks about marriage between being a man and a woman, right?
Yeah.
But do you agree that logically speaking, that doesn't inherently dismiss the idea of a union and a marriage between any other group, right? Like, let me phrase it this way, right? Mm-hmm. If I say white people should be allowed to marry, intrinsic in a statement is not saying that interracial marriages shouldn't happen, that black people shouldn't marry, that people, whatever. Like, so where does Jesus say specifically homosexuality should not be recognized as a marriage?
Well, marriage is between a man and a woman. That's just as simple as that. Like, it's not Jesus. Here's the thing, like.
But I just give you an example of how that doesn't.
Well, no, because you said like, with white people being married, and then that doesn't mean that you can't have interracial. That's very different than literally.
So if I just say
marrying the opposite sex, like it's very different.
You don't see. To me, it's the same thing. To me, saying marriage is between a man and a woman, is not actually. I mean, this is a matter of basic logic. There's nothing in that statement that is suggesting that therefore marriage couldn't be between more than just a man and a woman.
But that's just, you see, that's like me going to a park, seeing a set of rules, and it says no skateboarding. But then I'm like, well, I could take my skateboard and hit someone on the side of the head with it. It didn't say not to do that.
No, the analogy would work if the rules said no homosexuality altogether. Which again, I know you can point to I think Leviticus, and there's like a lot of other conversation about how that's interpreted culturally, and I actually might be more with you on that, which I actually think that the Bible ultimately is against homosexuality.
No, the Bible is very clear about marriage being between a man and a woman, not just Jesus. I mean, there's multiple verses that are very clear about marriage being between a man and a woman. But I'm just caught up. I'm caught up on calling a civil union between a man and a woman marriage. I just don't call that marriage. They can have all the benefits that come with a marriage, but the thing is, conservatives have already been too weak. They let that go, and now our Christian worldview is just taking a massive L. And for your side, you've taken a massive W, because conservatives are weak as fuck. That's the problem. They're weak as fuck, and they don't fight to conserve shit anymore. Your side's winning big time. Absolutely. So
I think what we're seeing now is the last hurrah of the right, the last attempt to try to win back some of the power.
Oh yeah, the thing is,
I mean, look, we're not winning that much. Look at what happened with the abortion situation.
Yeah,
but
you see, because, well, by you winning is this country losing. That's the problem. Like, you shouldn't. You're winning, but this country is gonna suffer under that. So
obviously, my perspective is going to be completely the opposite. I think that, but the only thing that's
you're a leftist, right?
I'm very. I mean, the only thing that I don't agree with the left. Here's another place where we can agree: is the left. Many people on the left are cowards in the context of criticizing other cultures for fear of being called Islamophobic, for fear of imperialism and all of that. I make no excuses about it. Like, I will criticize any culture that I think is causing harm to the people within that culture. So I've literally had, I mean, I've been called an Islamophobe before. I don't give a fuck. But so that's where me and the left, and which again, I don't even think those people who have those views are actually leftist. I think they're regressives in some ways. I think in many ways they've become what the right used to be about policing language. Okay, so I'm not for policing language.
Okay.
I think the right used to be the ones that were all concerned about swear words on television.
When?
Right? Back in the 50s, 60s, even 70s.
See, that's funny, bro. Because wouldn't you subscribe to the concept that there was a party switch?
What do you mean by that?
Well, okay, so Democrats fought to keep slavery. Republicans fought against slavery. The Democrats fought against women having the right to vote. The Republicans were the reason that women got the right to vote with the 19th Amendment. They were the catalyst of women getting the right to vote. And I say those things, and then people on your side of the political aisle are like, well, there was a party switch. There was a party switch, or there was a major party switch. And
I think to some degree that's true. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a Democrat. Right?
No, I know. That's why I asked you if you're a leftist. I didn't ask if you're a liberal.
I'm a leftist.
So you're a Marxist.
I'm on this leftist more specifically with like social issues. When it comes to, I'm undecided with some of that in the sense that, like, I come from a socialist perspective. I recognize that there are flaws with socialism, but I think capitalism is even worse. There are moments where, like, I tend to almost lean towards anarchism, but I think there are issues with how that will be implemented. Like, I'm openly undecided to what my political philosophy is specifically. What I can tell you is that in most contexts, it's going to be far away from what anything of the right has to offer. I do want to ask you real quick, and we can probably
wrap it up with this question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or was it? Well, before we wrap up, I do have another question after this, if that's okay with you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's okay
let me
with
see. Where did you go?
Do you see how much, even though we don't agree, how much more of a smooth conversation this is than having 5 people yelling like fucking ducks, quacking and like birds on TikTok?
But to be fair, wasn't it you that came on my live, how we met? Maybe I'm confusing it with somebody else. But I remember I thought that it was you who was in my live about a few weeks ago, who said something about when we were talking about body count and sex work. You said that, like, yeah, women that are in sex work are degenerate and whores, and you were like shouting in the room and then left. Am I confusing with somebody else? Because I could have sworn that was you, but I don't want to misattribute those actions with you. But I thought that was you.
Yeah, I do think that anybody in sex work, not just women, there's also men in sex work, are degenerate, and I think that's a very, it's degenerate for sure. Now, if I was perhaps raising my voice or something, it's not because I'm angry or anything. It's because there's 5 people talking over me, which is usually the case.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, think about it. People are like, why am I interrupting? Well, because it's only me versus 5 other people. So when 5 people are all squawking at the same time, I had to speak louder, and I had to like interrupt at times because I'm the only one speaking for me, and there's 5 people going against.
And I do get that, and I've been on the other side of that, where I've been the only atheist in a room of 5 people, theists. But I will say that it's hard for me to feel particularly bad for how you're interpreted, because I think the things that you say and the views that you have, from my perspective, are repulsive. Now, I don't think that you should be kept from saying them. That's why you're here, right? Like, I think that you should have the space to say everything you believe in. And I disagree with those people who are trying to silence you and keep you from having a platform. I'm on your side on that issue. Why am I on your side on that issue? Because I think that it's important to make these views that you have public to the world, to expose your views to the world, for everybody to know exactly what a Christian conservative stands for. So there is no miscommunication there. I don't think, like I said, I'm all about free speech. I don't think it's right that if you get banned on TikTok, that would be a detriment to the community. That's my perspective. So I wanted to show this comment real quick. Where did it go? Sorry, 1 second. We have zero evidence to suggest that society suffers from the idea of inclusive marriage. So this is what I'm trying to understand. Like, how do you justify your values as far as these things are bad for society?
Yeah, I don't negotiate with God. That's the thing. As a Christian, this is what God has said. I don't negotiate with God. God's the creator of all things. God's the creator of us. So I'm not going to sit here as a mortal being and say, well, I'm going to negotiate with you, God. I think you were wrong about this. This is God's word. This is God's tenets. This is scripture. However, I don't hate them. I don't hate anybody that disagrees. I don't hate atheists. I don't hate LGBTQ. I don't hate socialists. I don't hate. But what I'm going to say is, you're not going to call marriage in the United States, that's always been and rooted in Christianity. Now, this talking about bastardization, marriage between a man and a man is a civil union, sure. And I'll repeat, they can have all the same benefits that come with a marriage, financial benefits, etc. But you're not going to call it a marriage because this comes from the Bible.
So this is what I want to discuss now before we wrap up, if we have enough time. I want to see the justification that you can provide for how you know God exists, for how you know that the Bible is the word of God, for how you know that your interpretation of the Bible is the correct interpretation. Because you just said, I don't negotiate with God. How do you know that your view is there by God?
Faith. That's all it is. That's what it comes down to, is faith.
So let's navigate that statement, right? How is faith a reliable path to truth when anybody can have faith in contradictory claims? If I come to you and I say, I have faith that God doesn't exist, or a Muslim comes to you and says, I have faith that Jesus may have lived, but he wasn't the son of God or God himself.
Right.
And you have faith that he is, or you have faith that God. So what can either of us offer? Obviously, if we both have faith that what we believe is true, we need something else to actually justify what we have faith in, to justify that claim. Just saying I have faith doesn't mean anything, right?
Well, it does. I mean, I have the all the scripture of the Bible. Now, you can have, again, God lets us have free will. You can choose to believe, to not believe, to be agnostic, to you have the free will to do whatever it is that you want. But there are commandments. There is a such thing as sin, but it's not from my job as a Christian to say what you're doing is wrong.
But the Bible is the claim, right? The Bible is the claim.
Of course, this is from God. Yes.
But here's my problem with what you're saying. You're saying that you have the Bible, but how does that justify your faith? Because that's, to me, so different than a Muslim saying, well, I have the Quran, so Islam is true.
My job as a Christian is not to justify my claims to you. I live my life as Christ intended. I don't force my religion onto you.
Sure.
But this country, the United States, is undeniably has always been a Christian nation. So I'm going to fight to conserve the Christian worldview. But the United States is one of 195 countries in the world. I'm not going to imprison people or kill people for disagreeing. I know, but I also don't have to justify my rationale to you. The God, handed the scripture down. Man wrote down the scripture in the Bible, and we believe through faith. I don't have to justify my faith to you. You don't have to believe. It's not my job to force you to believe.
But here's what I find so fascinating about this, is that it's not that you have to justify, and I know this is going to sound arrogant, but it's how I see it. You can't justify it to yourself. That's the problem. Because again, you want to say that it's your faith, but you can't show me how faith is a reliable path to truth. Because like I've said, people can use faith to believe things that are completely contradictory to your perspective. And you want to say, well, I have the Bible. Well, they have the Quran. They have the Buddhist scriptures. Like, we can
if you like, I can give you examples where I have felt that through my life and other family members of mine that God does exist. And I can give you, it's anecdotal experience, but it's my lived experience nonetheless.
Show me how these experiences
proof
shown proof is a mathematical concept. I'm not asking for proof. I'm only asking for evidence.
Yeah.
But here's the problem I have. Okay. Because again, I don't need certainty that God exists for me to be a believer. Like if somebody could provide me with convincing evidence, you mentioned free will before. I don't freely choose to not believe in God. That's another misconception. I don't choose what I find convincing. My brain is structured in such a way.
Yeah, but you have the free will to structure your belief system however you'd like.
I don't, because what
you
I
do
find
because you're not. I'm not forcing. Like God doesn't force you to do anything. You have the free will to think differently.
From my perspective, free will is an illusion. For me, I'm not choosing what ends up being convincing to me. Like I value a certain kind of evidence, and I don't know how not to value it. It's just like natural to me.
Did you force me to do this interview with you?
No, but
no.
But hold on a second. But you're confusing being what led you to make your decision is based on neurological events in your brain that you're not yourself the author of. It's an assumption, it's an illusion to think that you have freely chosen to do this interview. I didn't force you. I didn't point a gun at your head.
Oh, how is it not my free will to?
Because every single action we take is dependent on neurological events that we didn't choose into existence. It just is the case that these things are going on.
No, because I could literally choose to just close my laptop right now.
Sure, but even that will be based on the same neurological events that you didn't create.
So the neurological events are in whose brain? Your brain and my brain. Okay.
Yes, of course, but you're not freely choosing their existence. You're just
who's choosing them for you then?
Nobody. That's the point. It's not a free choice.
What do you mean nobody?
It's not a free choice.
So would you say we're just
will, but you don't
we're
have
just
free
like robots? So all your thoughts are not your own?
No, they're your own, but they're not free thoughts. They're not free.
What do you mean they're not free thoughts? I don't get this concept.
Let's I will send you a paper that might explain this a little bit better.
Send me the paper.
This is kind of more of a side issue where what I'm trying to tell you is that like I don't choose to not believe in God. I would happily believe in God if somebody could provide me convincing evidence. It's not that I'm rejecting God in principle. It's that I can't help what convinces me. And so what I want from a theist is for somebody to provide evidence that can show me that it's not just imaginary, that it's not just psychological, that it's not just anecdotal, but it's like, here's something like that's testable, repeatable, makes novel predictions. That's more than just, I imagine this to be the case. Do you have anything like that?
But cease, it all comes down to faith. And that here's where free will. You have the free will to conclude, I'm going to have the faith to believe in God, or I'm going to have the free will to not believe and go on with my merry way. That's your free will. That is your free will based on your experiences, based on all the things that have happened up to this point in your life, up to you having a conversation with a theist, let's say, and them providing you, well, I can give you my anecdotal experiences mixed in with scripture to say, I do believe in God, I have faith in God, and I want to have, post death, once my body dies, I want to go to heaven, and I can tell you why I believe what I believe. However, you have the free will to reject that. You're not forced to. That's your free will.
We'll have to agree to disagree on that, because yes, of course, I'm not forced to. Like, I know you're not pointing a gun on my head, of course, but I don't see my belief system to be something that or what I find convincing to be something that I'm choosing. It's simply I experience my reality as such. And when you say it comes down to faith, I agree with you. I think there are two kinds of people in the world in this context. There are those who care about truth. Right? And there are those who care about comfort. And from my perspective, because, like I said, faith is a tool that anybody can use to justify anything. You can say that you can use scripture and your faith to say that your Christian God exists. A Muslim is going to use their scripture and their faith to say that their God exists, which I know there is some overlap there. But the point I'm making is that they're going to view, you have faith in Jesus Christ. They, based on their faith, they have a very different version of Jesus Christ than you would. And I can be an atheist that I can say, I have had the experience that there is no God. I've asked for God to answer my prayers, and I have felt in my heart that God does not exist, and therefore God does not exist. You wouldn't buy that narrative coming from an atheist, coming from a Muslim, but you then use the same framework that you would not accept for people outside of your faith to justify your beliefs, which is why I'm saying that you ultimately, all your conservative values about sexuality, about marriage, about what's traditional and what's not, is all grounded in this, in your view of religion that you can't justify to yourself as being the truth about reality.
But all my opinions are not just because of religion, though. Like, if you were to ask me my opinion on body count, for example, it's not only because of religion. I can give you a logical reason as to why I don't want someone with a higher body count outside of the concept of religion.
Well, I mean, I feel like and I feel like you've tried to do that in this conversation, and I appreciate you coming on and the attempt. I don't think that your view on body count is logical, because I think it assumes, for example, that if somebody has a high body count, they're less likely to have meaningful relationships. And I think that's actually, there's no basis for that. I think you have to take it case by case. You have to look at why people are doing what they're doing, and what the reality of their relationship has been in the past, what was driving that behavior. And I think religion has more of an impact than you think it does.
Did I say that someone with a high body count had a string of like bad relationships? Is this what I said?
No, but when we discussed on my live that one time, that was one of the examples you gave was it's more likely for a couple to divorce if somebody has a high body count. It's more likely for somebody to not be able to commit and be a stable mother if they had a high body. I mean, if you don't believe that now, that's great. But at the time when we had the conversation, that's the things you said. I can only.
I mean, I don't recall wording it that way. It's not that I necessarily 100% disagree with your interpretation of that. I don't remember saying it exactly. I've never made the argument in that way. That's what I'm saying. I've made the argument. When my body count arguments remained rather consistent. It's I choose to have a lower body count. And for someone to be like, you're Christian, how can you have a body count? Well, I wasn't always a Christian. So, but even when I wasn't, I still chose to be in a committed relationship. I still chose to not sleep around and engage in hookup culture. I chose not to do that even before I became more of a Christian in like 2018, and especially in 2019. And as I get older, the more Christian and conservative I've become. But what I'm going to say is this, like, I've never made the argument that you're saying I've made. I don't recall making that argument in that way, because my argument is this: I choose to have a lower body count. I want the person that I date to have a lower body count. They don't have to necessarily be a virgin, because I'm not. That would be hypocritical of me to require that. But I think this is someone that has, let's say that somebody has a body count of 5 or 6, right? But let's say two people, same body count, same age, same everything, except one has a body count of 6 because they've been in 6 committed relationships, and the other one has a body count of 6 because they've been in, let's say, 1 committed relationship and 5 hookups. I would choose to be, I wouldn't even entertain the person that's hooked up. I won't even entertain.
So regardless of who the person might be, regardless of what they may have been going through, or why they had 5 hookups.
Yeah, no, you hook up. Yeah, I'm not. No, I'm not entertaining.
And is this because of? So again, I assume that this has to do with notions of purity, right?
There's that aspect of it as well, but no, also it's you gave into lust. You gave into lust too easily, and lust in terms of this wasn't an emotional connection. This was something you were just, for lack of better words, you were just horny and you hooked up with somebody. And I find this degenerate, and I don't want to date somebody that's done that. But if you have the same body count, but there was 6 committed relationships, you were in love with the other person, I don't even have a problem with that.
So again, okay, I think that I hope that you feel like you were given a chance to clarify your views on this platform, that you were given a fair time.
Yeah.
I would love to have you back on in the future if you're willing to come on to discuss specifically the patriarchy.
Sure.
Because I think that that's one particular issue where I think that there's much disagreement. From my perspective, what you call love in the context of Christianity, to me, is far from what I think love is.
Okay.
From my background, from my perspective, love is not just finding empathy or finding where me and the other can come to common ground with, but is also embracing the other in their otherness, as long as they are not hurting other people because of it. And how we justify whether or not their behaviors are actually causing harm is where the difference lies, because you think you're justified in having these beliefs because you think your God and your Bible tells you so. I think that I'm justified in navigating what I think causes harm because I'm using science, I'm using sociology. I'm looking at how I think that these behaviors are taking place in culture and what are the observable effects on culture. So when you say that, for example, gay marriage is wrong because God tells you so, and I look at gay marriage and what's going on in society, I don't see the negative side effects that you're assuming are there. We're going to have a difference, obviously, in ideology there. For me, I don't care if a person has 100 body count. I care about who they are. I care about what drove them. I care about their capacity to commit to me now and to love me now, not their past.
And that's your right to do that. Again, that's your
right
that's your free will. That's your free will. I'm not forcing you to have whatever preferences you have. That's your free will.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, and let me know if you're willing to come back.
Yeah, I'm always. Yeah,
sounds good. And does anybody have any quick questions before I end this for my guest or for myself? It's not free will. I don't know if anybody wants to. What is the most evil thing ever to this dude?
Why is it why is it the most evil thing ever to this dude? Is that question in terms of body count?
Yeah, I'm not sure what they were referring to there.
I don't find I don't evil. I wouldn't find it's just a preference. Like, evil. I don't find it evil. People can do whatever they want. I'm just, don't force me to entertain somebody if they've engaged in hookup culture.
If you want society to decide that people follow Christianity, even if it is contrary to their faith, that is anti-freedom.
But if you want society to decide that people follow,
I'm not sure if that's what you're saying, but when you say
I'm not forcing, yeah, like it's I'm not forcing it to be in law. That's what I was saying. Like Congress or what's it called? In the First Amendment, it says that there's no establishment of religion in government. However, socially, we've always been Christian. We've always been majority Christian. And I'm saying, as a conservative Christian, I'm fighting to conserve those traditional values in a social aspect.
But doesn't that also play out legislatively? Like, what does that look like when you're saying a social aspect? Like, wouldn't that turn out to be, for example, legislating abortion?
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, like, for example, marriage is between how many people?
What's that?
Regardless of gender and sex, how many people are involved in a marriage? How many people are getting married, in other words?
Currently here in this country too.
You're talking about the United States too. Yeah, exactly.
I might be open eventually to more than that.
Yeah, it's definitely going to change. I was actually talking about this with another conservative friend of mine yesterday, and he said that. But here's the question: why has it been 2? Where is this number 2 coming?
It hasn't been 2 in every culture.
No, I'm talking about in the United States.
Not sure.
Christianity, because Christianity is a marriage between 2 people. I'm not even talking about their gender, sex, none of that. I'm just saying 2 people. Even in gay and lesbian civil unions, marriages, it's between how many people? 2 people. And this comes from Christianity. This concept of 2 people getting married comes directly from Christianity.
Okay. Well, like I said, I appreciate you coming on, and everybody that came in and listened to the conversation, I want to thank you for your time, and I hope everybody has a safe night. And I will be back sometime in the next few days for another episode of Axioms on Trial.
All right. Well, thank you, Cease. I appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you for coming on.
See you.